Let's go to Kamwa, man. Boy, coming out of nowhere, huh? Coming back from the dead,
Yeah,
as you like to put your little gift there. The
it's like the
Undertaker.
Undertaker, man. Juwan Howard Photoshop his face on there. He gets out of the casket. Incredible. So plenty of twists and turns in this one, as we've talked about for 6 weeks. Michigan was the leader here. Then he goes through the NBA draft process as he was intending on doing, goes to the G League Elite Camp, does not earn a combine invite, NBA combine, pulls out of the draft on May 31. And okay, now there seems to be a recruitment. He starts to set visits. Michigan's one of them. Baylor, West Virginia, Kansas State, right in that mix. Then on Monday, there are reports, okay, Michigan's out of it here. This is going to be West Virginia and Baylor. Less than 24 hours later, Michigan is back in it and appeared to be the leader. And then 12 hours after that, he ends up a Michigan Wolverine. And I don't think it's any coincidence that they signed him and announced him immediately after that as well. So good on Tom Wyrot, the communications guy over there, for getting that one done with the press release. But man, and it just tells you, is we talked about this on Monday because things didn't look good when we were on our live show at 6 p.m. when the news had just dropped. But it's never over until it's over, until a guy is signed. So this one is over now. But Olivier Nkamhoua, 6'9", 236-pound forward out of Tennessee, averaged nearly 11 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists per game last season, shot 55% from inside the arc, 33.3% on 54 three-point attempts. And my favorite thing, 70.8% at the rim. Fellas, a big addition for Juwan Howard and company. It was 6-7 weeks in the making. Didn't look good at one point, but Olivier Nkamhoua is a Michigan Wolverine.
Yeah, I don't think it's any coincidence that they had every other ducks in a row to announce this right away. Let's put it that way. I think they expected it initially, and then you know what? Things come up, and you've got different guys in your camp that want different things. I think Andrew Slater, one of the analysts out there, put it out there. He wanted Michigan. Somebody else maybe was more interested in NIL. Maybe somebody else was closer to another coach. And you know what? The kid won out, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So, and I do believe he will get some NIL opportunities. Do I think Michigan threw a huge bag at him to land him? No, I do not. I do think that there is still some work to do there, and they still aren't going to be doing the pay-for-play thing where they're going to get into bidding wars. But if you can provide opportunities, as we're seeing in football, then you're going to have an opportunity, especially if you win. That's what's really kind of keeping Michigan afloat. You've still got too few guys carrying the water for NIL at Michigan right now, and basketball needs more help, flat out. So, however, this is a huge get, and if you get one more guy, I know there's been a lot of buzz about Antonio Reeves from Kentucky, and I don't think the smoke there. There's some smoke, but I still think that one's very fluid. But Michigan's in the mix there. If it comes down to NIL, I don't think Michigan wins that battle, but these guys want to play too, right? If Nkamhoua were to have gone to West Virginia or Baylor, they've got more depth there than they do at Michigan. He understands that he's going to get some minutes, and we should say right now, this kid's not the world beater. He's not going to go out there and score 20 points a game and get you 10 rebounds, but he is a great piece. He understands the game, as Juwan Howard said in the release, much better passer than given credit for. And more importantly, man, there was a void there last year, and I think he's going to be the guy to fill it. So huge get for Michigan basketball as they try to get back to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, really that void at the 4 has been there for the last 2 years. I mean, they didn't get what they thought they should have out of Brandon Johns last year. Obviously, the issues with Terrence Williams and Will Cheddar last year. But, yeah, this is a big deal for them. And really quick tangent on this whole situation. I think that Nkamhoua is already 23. I think he'll be 24 at some point next season. He's an adult. Like, why is anyone else influencing this decision? And you have, again, you're still a young man. I'm not a star athlete, but you seek the input of those with life experience and adults and people in your life will steer you or counsel you in a certain direction. But, when you see the stuff about, factor A was this, factor B was this, and this was pulling him in one direction, this was pulling him in another. Stop. Like, let him make the decision. It ultimately is his future and what he chooses to invest in. But yeah, you look at what he brings to the table. I mean, we were in a dark place earlier this week when you're sitting here thinking that there's no way this guy's coming now. I mean, Michigan's been eliminated from consideration. And, whatever happened at the 11th hour, they swoop back in, and all of a sudden you have a guy that, the factors that needed to be important and leaned on ultimately were. And now you have a guy that's going to start at the 4, can probably play a little bit of backup 5 for you, which I don't know if that's, I think you still need to maybe address that through the portal. But, I think that we know that Juwan likes to run the offense through his big guys. I think that Nkamhoua is, I know I watched him put up 27 points against Duke. I think to expect him to do that night in and night out would be, pretty lofty. But I think this is a guy that, all of a sudden you look at what this starting 5 could look like. And I'm just spitballing here, but, I think you could do a lot worse than a starting 5 that has Doug McDaniel, Namari Burnett, Nkamhoua, Terrace Reed, and we'll see who emerges at the 3. Maybe there's another guard you go out there and get, and Burnett plays the 3, or Yusuf Khayat steps up, and you still have Trey Jackson and Terrence Williams, and you have some options. But again, we'll see if this ultimately moves the needle in a big way for them to get back to where we think they should be in the NCAA tournament. But I think at the very least, we talk about how Josh Wallace's addition raised the floor of the cornerback room at Michigan. I think that having Nkamhoua, a guy that's proven to be an asset at the college level, it just raises. You don't want to be one of those Wednesday night teams in the Big Ten tournament, right? I think that's kind of the line here. So we'll see. There's still some work to do. A couple spots up for grabs here, but they had to have him, and thank goodness they got him, because I don't know where they would have gone if they didn't.
Yeah. And the biggest thing, too, with Nkamhoua, talking to Grant Ramey, who covers Tennessee for VolQuest, is one, he's going to add, I think he is 23 years old. And I'm happy for him that his wishes won out here. He wanted to come, play for Juwan Howard, play for Michigan, get developed, and eventually become a pro. But he adds, he's a great culture fit, too. We talked about it on the football side with Josh Wallace, but watch an interview of Olivier Nkamhoua, just how mature, thoughtful he is. So I think that's going to be a fantastic fit. And we've talked about culture the last 2 years being an issue with these Michigan basketball teams, or maybe chemistry would be a better way to put it. I think Olivier Nkamhoua is going to help in that department. Now, one thing on the floor is he is a very inconsistent player. We all saw what he did against Duke, and then he completely disappeared in the Sweet 16 against FAU. I forget how many minutes he played, but, essentially wasn't even a factor in that game. Last year, he had 17 double-digit scoring efforts. He had 5 games of 20-plus points, including that Duke game. He also had 8 games with 6 or fewer points, plenty in the single digits there. And then he basically just kind of falls out of the rotation in a game, and then you come back the next game, see what he can give you. But he's going to get better, and I think with, a different lineup around him, could be potentially better this season and more consistent, and Juwan Howard will work with him. And I think that's something that he's really excited about. And then I was thinking about this because we had a question on the message board over at thewolverine.com is, when was last time Michigan had a 4-man like this? Because John Beilein approached it a different way. I mean, you look back at some of their 4s. It was Zach Irvin, Duncan Robinson. Now, there was the DJ Wilson year in there when he started alongside Mo Wagner in 2017. Lately, you've had some bigger options like a Moussa Diabate, but then you've also had, he couldn't shoot. So this is a guy
Isaiah Livers.
Yeah, but this is more of a post-up guy to me than,
Right.
Livers wasn't going to live in the post.
Right.
I think the last time they've had a guy like this is DJ Wilson. Now, DJ might have been better and a better shooter, but the athleticism here I think is big. What are your guys' thoughts on kind of where their approach is now at this 4 spot?
Yeah, I think it's better than Diabate and Hunter Dickinson out there at the same time together when it got clunky, right? Because I think he's multifaceted. I think Nkamhoua can step out, and I think he can play inside. Obviously, he scored, like you said, 70.8%, I think, around the rim is absolutely huge, So that's what I love about it. And again, you've got another option. I think Terrence Williams is going to bounce back and have a solid year. I really do. I think as a backup, he's not the guy that you want to be your starter, but I think he's much better than he's shown. And we've seen it from him. Last year was a complete disaster for him, obviously, and he lost some of his confidence. But So, and then don't forget about Trey Jackson as well, so now they've got bodies and they've got guys that are going to compete. So it'll be interesting to see how it meshes. I can't imagine it's not going to be better than last year, right? There were some issues there, some chemistry issues, and you saw it on the floor in the body language. If a guy didn't box out, you had guys throwing their hands up, you had guys pointing at other guys and things like that. So I don't anticipate that's going to be an issue this year. So, and when you look at that, again, when you look at that depth chart, guys, or that scholarship chart, there are a lot of guys in there that were top 100 guys. Okay. There's talent on this team. Namari Burnett has yet to reach his peak, and he's been injured, obviously, but I think he's better than he's shown, and he's a good defender. I think it's going to be a better defensive team. I think you've got guys that are willing to buy in much more than some guys last year who didn't give a damn about defense. It was about getting their shots, and whatever. So Yusuf Hayat, I can't wait to see, if he's improved. Talking to Phil Martelli, Michigan's associate head coach, this year about him, he said he's got more to give. He says he wouldn't call him a consistent shooter. He said he's a little streaky at times, but he said the kid wants it so badly. And I see a roster full of those guys. And to me, those are the kinds of teams that can overachieve.
Yeah. As far as the approach goes, you look at I feel like there's more skill in that forward rotation now. At center, obviously we talk about how they need a backup five still, but now it feels like you have guys that you kind of you can mix and match a little bit. And I guess to a certain extent you can do that with Terrence Williams and Will Cheddar, but let's be honest here. I mean, neither of them really had anything that you can really hang your hat on as, okay, this is what he brings to the table. I mean, Nkamhoua, it's an inconsistent skill set, but there is some offensive skills there. I like the length that Trey Jackson has. I like, at the five, I like that Terrace Reed moves well for a player that size. All of a sudden to me, it just kind of, what was a big question when Hunter Dickinson left now kind of moves, to the other side of the lineup where, okay, are you going to have enough from the guard spots? Are you going to have enough on the wing? I don't know that yet. And like Chris said, there's a lot of talent, here still. That 2021 class was kind of supposed to be the one that took this thing to the next level, but that wasn't the case. And all of a sudden, you have Moussa Diabate, Caleb Houston are gone. Frankie Collins transfers out. Kobe Buffkin's off to the NBA now. So there's not, Isaiah Barnes is gone. So really, you're looking at Will Cheddar to kind of emerge from that and be, if nothing else, just be a good bench, piece off the bench. But, from there, again, I just, the pieces on the roster in general, I've said it from the start. I don't know that there's a certain archetype of guy that they needed to hone in on. I think they just needed to find a couple good basketball players and increase the competition. And, maybe some new blood changes the chemistry a bit. And, so far you look at Namari Burnett and Olivier Nkamhoua. I think that those are two guys that, are going to kind of be adults in the room too. I know Burnett hasn't played a ton of basketball because of injuries and he's moved around a little bit, but you finally have some adults in the room that you would hope will be some of your leaders next year. So that's just kind of my overview on where it is in general.
Yeah, and when you look at this roster, which isn't necessarily complete, it could be at this point, too, with Nkamhoua, is most of his touches are going to come in the post, but as Chris, you mentioned, and Juwan pointed out too, his passing is really intriguing to me. He had a really high assist rate last year, averaged 2 assists per game, so it's not going to get stuck in there. And when Terrace Reed, he needs to come along quite a bit offensively. When that's the case there, I mean, I think you do have a veteran presence now in the front court. You have Trey Jackson, you have Namari Burnett. Now I'm going to do another gun to your head question. If this is the 11 that Michigan rolls out with this coming winter, what's your starting lineup at this point projected in June?
Yeah. Well, I think Nkamhoua Reed and then McDaniel Burnett, and then the 3, man, that's a toughie. Do you play Burnett at the 3? Does George Washington come out of nowhere as your 2 and light it up? I don't think so. So that's what I don't know. That's to me, which is why they're still going after a guy like Antonio Reeves, right? They need one more guard there. And if they can get somebody like that, then you're looking at a team that could vie for the tournament. So, and it sounds like, he's an option. Again, it depends on what he's looking for. Is he going to be a guy like Nkamhoua, who doesn't necessarily need to go to the highest bidder? Is he going to be a guy who, like Burnett, who was looking for the right fit and, you know what, found it. So he's going to get his NIL opportunities too. Just, you know what, it's just not going to be a bag thrown at him. So those 4 and one other, how's that? Is that a cop out?
You got a starting 4.
We got a starting 4. So.
Considering they've been playing 4-on-5 the last few years, anyways.
Right,
They've got a
exactly.
power forward. I think it works. No,
maybe maybe Youssef steps up, right? We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, right now I would say I think McDaniel, Nkamhoua, Reed are locks. I think Nimari Burnett is probably close to a lock at this point, depending on who else they bring in. But it's a matter of, Jalen Llewellyn's back. Do you start him and play him off the ball, and then Burnett's playing
ready?
3, or will he
be ready? Right.
Yeah, will he even be ready for that? So, gun to my head, I would say McDaniel, Burnett, Jussef, Nkamhoua, Reed would be where I would go with that right now. So,
okay, I have the same 4 as you guys. I would plug in Trey Jackson at the 3, and I think we forget too that Terrence Williams played the 3 to start his career. His first couple seasons, he could do that. So you do have some options. I do think you need either a wing. I mean, Antonio Reeves would be, I think, a great pickup for what this team needs, because then, you're really thin in the backcourt. But if you can allow Nimari Burnett to stay in the backcourt by getting another wing, then I think that fills that, problem too. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Will Antonio Reeves even graduate and enter the transfer portal? I do love how there's this much talk surrounding him, and rightfully so. It's people, started with people from Kentucky, but going to be interesting to see what happens.